I've been disappointed by watches I loved. I got that beautiful Panerai dive watch that turned out to be water-resistant to 30 meters, the same as a cheap digital watch. The TAG Heuer I paid $1,500 for turned out to have a $25 movement inside. I have made more purchases, and every one of those purchases came with a complaint, which is why I made this video. I have made a list of 8 watches, cutting away the noise and the marketing. Just pure functioning and usefulness. There's something about these watches, and don't let that throw you off when the list begins. That said, let's start. Number 8. SIN 556 IRS. The SIN 556 community has had one complaint since the watch launched: the clasp, and we'll get to this in a bit. The watch has a Sellita SW 200-to-1 movement. It is a Swiss automatic that runs reliably, gaining roughly 3 seconds a day. It has been used in thousands of watches across hundreds of brands at every price point. This watch has a brushed 316L stainless, 38.5 millimeters, 11 millimeters thick, can resist water 200 meters deep with a screw-down crown, drilled lugs for easy strap changes, flat sapphire crystal with AR coating on both sides. A dial so clean and purposeful it looks like it was designed by engineers for other engineers. Because it was. SIN was founded in 1961 by a German flight instructor who designed cockpit clocks and then moved to wristwatches. The DNA is in every line of the 556 dial. No decorative text, no finishing flourishes. Black field, white indices, white hands, red seconds hand on the RS version. The word automatic above 6 o'clock spelled with a K because this is German and that is the correct spelling. The H-Link bracelet is one of the most comfortable steel bracelets in the business. Its finishing, fully brushed, no polished accents, matches the watch's refusal to show off. And now, the clasp. For years, the complaint from SIN owners was the same. Getting the bracelet fitted meant removing links with a tool or relying on a diver's extension that added bulk and looked out of place on a watch this elegant. Something the Omega Aquaterra at twice the price solved years ago. Something Tudor had addressed. Something SIN, a brand obsessive about engineering in every other dimension, simply had not done. One Watch Crunch reviewer spent hundreds of words praising the case, movement, dial, and bracelet, and then devoted an entire section to "I wish the clasp had on-the-fly adjustment." It was the same review being written by different people across 5 years of community discussion. In 2024, SIN announced the Quick Adjust Clasp. 39 individual parts, 6 secure locking positions at 2.5 millimeters intervals, tool-free range of 10.25 millimeters. By 2025 and into 2026, it became available for the 556 on the H-Link bracelet. One reviewer on Watch Crunch who had waited for this specific update wrote the words, "I have no complaints." That sentence, from someone who had owned the watch for years and knew every fault it ever had, shows how much the brand listens. This is why you should be safe in their hands. Or what do you think? Let's get on with it. Number 7. Longinus Spirit Zulu Time 39 millimeters. Most GMT watches in the $2,000 to $4,000 range give you something that looks like a GMT complication. The Longines Spirit Zulu Time gives you an actual one. The distinction matters and is worth spelling out because it is the most commonly misunderstood feature in the watch market. A pseudo-GMT, sometimes called a GMT tourist or home time GMT, jumps the additional hand in 1-hour increments via the crown, but only when you also advance the local time hand. You cannot independently set the GMT hand to any arbitrary time zone without moving the main time display. It tracks 2 zones, but not independently. A true GMT hand is independently settable. Pull the crown to the GMT position, advance the hand to whatever time zone you want, push the crown back in, and the local time continues running uninterrupted. You can track 3 time zones if you know how to read the 2. 4-hour scale on the bezel. The GMT hand against the bezel gives you a 1/3. This is the complication as originally designed for Pan Am pilots in 1954. This is what the Longines Spirit Zulu Time delivers for under $4,000, which puts it in the same category as the Rolex GMT Master 2 at around $12,000 and the Tudor Black Bay GMT at around $2,800. The Tudor Black Bay GMT has a pseudo-GMT that many buyers mistake for a true GMT. This is a genuine limitation, extensively discussed on forums, and it makes the head-to-head comparison with the Longines striking. The Longines, at a similar price, gives you more functional complication for less money. The movement is the L847.4 caliber COSC, chronometer certified, independently verified accuracy to within -4 and +6 seconds per day. The ceramic bezel carries a 2-4-hour scale that is both functional and clean. The case is 39 millimeters, positioned for everyday wear without the size arguments that haunt everything above 41 millimeters. Power reserve is 72 hours. Water resistance is 100 meters. The bracelet has easy link removal. What do people complain about? The lug shape makes some third-party straps fit awkwardly. The dial is busy relative to pure dress watches. These are preferences, not defects. They appear in forum threads when someone is looking hard for something to object to. Under $4,000, true GMT, COSC certified, and ceramic bezel, the watch provides value. Number 6. IWC Pilot's Watch Mark XX. IWC's Pilot's Watch Mark series has a lineage that goes back to the Mark XI of 1948. That watch was the one that became the standard issue RAF Pilot's watch and remained so for decades. The brief against the Mark 18th, its predecessor, was consistent in the forums. 60-meter water resistance that felt insufficient for a tool watch positioned as modern and capable, and a 3-day power reserve that required more frequent winding than most owners wanted. The Mark XX addressed both directly. Water resistance is now 100 meters, enough for serious everyday use, swimming, any incidental water exposure a pilot or non-pilot would encounter. The power reserve is 5 days, meaning you can take it off on Friday night, put it in a drawer, and pick it up the following Wednesday without resetting the time. The movement is the caliber 35111, running at 28,800 bph. The case is 40 millimeters, wearing slightly smaller because of the well-proportioned lugs and the relative thickness of 10.8 millimeters. The anti-reflective sapphire reads in almost any light. The soft iron inner case that IWC has used in its Pilot's watch line for decades is still here. The anti-magnetic protection built into the architecture of the watch, not added as a feature on the specification sheet. The forum threads on the Mark XX read differently from most IWC discussions. The brand carries a reputation, fair or not, for charging legacy prices at entry level without always delivering what that investment implies. The Mark XX threads are largely free of that argument. Collectors who went looking for the usual complaints found instead that the watch had addressed the specific criticisms of its predecessor and priced itself at around $4,000. And the community treats this new price as fair. But there is still one criticism that remains. The movement is developed from an ETA 2892 base rather than a fully in-house architecture. For a watch positioned as a professional instrument from a brand with manufacturing capability, some buyers expected more, and they should. They have raised a legitimate point. The movement could be more ambitious, but the watch has done well in that regard. The Mark XX earns its place not because it is beyond criticism, because it is good now, but it can be greater. Now let's talk about the watch that solved a problem that nobody in the watch industry had solved before it. Number 5. Cartier Santos Medium. The Cartier Santos is one of the oldest wristwatch designs in continuous production. Louis Cartier designed it for aviator Alberto Santos Dumont in 1904 because Santos Dumont needed to check the time while flying without taking his hands off the controls. The square case with exposed screws has been in continuous production in various configurations ever since. There is almost nothing to say about the Santos that is controversial in 2026. The watch carries the kind of cultural weight that accumulates over 120 years. It has been worn by everyone from Santos, Dumont himself, to every generation of collectors who discovered it and called it their own. The medium steel version is 35.1 millimeter and 6.6 millimeters thin. It sits at a size that works on almost any wrist. The dial is clean, readable, and unmistakable. If someone sees this watch across a restaurant and recognizes it, They know something about watches. It is not a watch you need to explain. The only persistent complaint prior to 2018 was the strap and bracelet situation. Changing the strap or adjusting the metal bracelet on a Santos required a trip to a jeweler. Every watch brand charges for this. Every watch owner finds it mildly annoying. The watch sits unworn while you wait. The cost adds up, and the spontaneous decision to swap to a leather strap becomes a 2-week project. Cartier solved this in 2018 with the Quick Switch and SmartLink systems. Quick Switch allows strap changes without tools. A lever mechanism built into the lug lets you swap between the steel bracelet and any leather strap in seconds. SmartLink allows bracelet link adjustment without tools. The same lever mechanism lets you add or remove links on the fly. These are not minor features. They are the answer to the only complaint a watch as well resolved as the Santos could generate. Every forum thread discussing the Santos from 2018 onward includes some version of the same observation. There is nothing left to fix. The movement is caliber 1847 MC, Cartier's in-house automatic. Not the most technically ambitious movement in the price category, but accurate, reliable, and manufacturer-backed in a way that matters during servicing. The case finishing is among the best in steel watchmaking at this price point. There are people who don't like the square case. They are buying the wrong watch. The Santos is not for everyone and has never pretended to be. For the people who wear it, there is genuinely nothing left to complain about. This is the midpoint of the list. 5 watches with near zero community complaints. So far, these watches have all earned their spot on this list, or what do you think? The next 3 watches are different. They are not watches where the brand fixed a problem. They are watches where the product, from the beginning, left almost nothing to fix. Which one of these 5 would you actually wear? Drop it below. I'm curious whether you prefer a tool watch or a dress watch. Let's move on to the next one. Number 4. Grand Seiko White Birch LG 005. I want to be honest about what forum research reveals about this watch, because the brief implies 0 complaints, and the truth is slightly more complicated and more interesting. When the SLGH 005 launched in 2021, some owners reported the 9SA5 movement running substantially fast. In documented WatchUSeek threads, a small number of users reported gains of 8 to 12 seconds per day in the first weeks of ownership. For a high beat movement rated at +5 and -3 seconds per day, already stricter than COSC, this was a legitimate concern, one longtime Grand Seiko owner wrote. The movement is still in its infancy and experiencing teething pains. The community tracked this over 2 to 3 years. The consensus that emerged: the dual impulse escapement benefits from breaking in, keeping the watch fully wound, wearing it consistently, and in some cases, having it adjusted by Grand Seiko service resolved the issue for most affected owners. By 2023 and 2024, the accuracy conversation had largely settled. The movement does what it claims when properly run in. The forum comment that best captures where things landed. After continuous testing, I can confirm that 9SA5 accuracy never crosses above +25 seconds fast in a month of wearing, an average of +0.8 seconds per day. I am now very content with the White Birch. What was never in question is the dial. The White Birch dial is made at the Shizukuishi studio in Iwate Prefecture, Japan, inspired by the forests of white birch trees visible from the building where it was created. The texture is not printed. It is not a film applied to a flat surface. It is a dial worked by hand until the surface captured the grain of birch bark, the fine, irregular pattern that looks different in morning light than in afternoon light, that photographs one way and sits on the wrist differently. You cannot photograph it accurately, but this is not a failure of photography. The dial exists in 3 dimensions in a way that flat photography cannot capture. The watch community has been examining dials for decades. It has produced essentially no credible criticism of this one. Fratello Watches called it a turning point for Grand Seiko's identity. Worn and Wound wrote that the price was hard to argue with, even if they wanted to. The 9SA5 movement beneath it introduced Grand Seiko's dual impulse escapement, delivering 80 hours of power reserve from a high beat movement at 36,000 vibrations per hour. That combination had never been achieved before. The caseback is sapphire because the movement deserves to be seen. At $9,000, it is not accessible to everyone. The specific complaint, that you can make something better for the money, requires you to name the something. In 5 years, the community has not agreed on one. From a Japanese dial without equal to a Swiss watch that has ended more watch searches than any other single reference. Number 3. Rolex Explorer 36 Ref 124270. When the watch community talks about ending the search, the moment a collector stops chasing the next reference and wears one watch indefinitely, the Rolex Explorer 36 comes up more than any other watch in its price range. The forums are full of this conversation. People who owned Submariners, Speedmasters, and Black Bays writing that the Explorer made everything else feel unnecessary. The 124270 is 36 millimeters. In 2021, when Rolex released it, 36 millimeters was considered small by the standards the market had been chasing for a decade of 39, 41, 43 millimeter cases. The response from the community was immediate and almost entirely positive. The size was described not as a limitation, but as the point. A watch that fits under a shirt cuff. A watch that disappears into the day and reappears when you glance at it. A watch that does not participate in the conversation about wrist presence because it is too busy being worn. The caliber 3230 inside runs at -2 and +2 seconds per day. Rolex's superlative chronometer standard, which is stricter than COSC and is tested in-house by Rolex after casing, not in a movement blank before assembly. The Chronergy escapement improves energy efficiency by 15% over its predecessor. The Parachrome hairspring is anti-magnetic and resistant to temperature shocks. 70-hour power reserve. The case is polished on the dial side and brushed on the top surface of the bezel, a combination that makes the 36mm dimensions look more intentional than small. What do people complain about? The lack of a date. Some people who want a date buy something else, which is the correct decision. The price, currently around $7,000 for a 3-hand watch with no complications. This is a real argument, and it is made frequently. The counter-argument is that you are paying for the movement specification, the case finishing, the brand infrastructure, and the secondary market value retention that almost nothing in its price tier matches. The Explorer 36 typically sells for close to retail on the gray market, in a period when most watches trade below it. The most boring watch on this list. That is meant exactly the way it sounds. Boring, in a watch, is often the highest compliment a community can give. It means nothing competes for your attention when you are trying to read the time. It means you wore it for 3 years and then bought a dress watch because you needed one, and then sold the dress watch 6 months later because you kept reaching for the Explorer. From the watch that ends searches to the watch that redefines what a watch is supposed to do. Number 2. Grand Seiko Snowflake SBGA 211. Before I talk about Snowflake, let me branch out to the Tudor Pelagos 39. It should have made this list and want to be honest about why it didn't, and why it almost did, because both parts of that sentence are interesting. In the negative column, early units had documented QC issues. 2 faulty examples before one buyer received a satisfactory watch. Velcro straps failing after 3 months. Bezels with misaligned inserts. Tudor responded quickly to these issues, and the problems appear to have been concentrated in the earliest production runs rather than systemic. But they are documented, and a list about 0 complaints has to be honest about documented complaints. In the positive column, almost everything else. The titanium case at 39mm and 11.8mm thick wears lighter than almost any diver at this price. The T-fit clasp adjusts on the fly with no tools. The ceramic bezel has a click so crisp and positive that owners mention it specifically in reviews. The caliber MT5402 runs at Mita's Master Chronometer standard, the same independent certification Omega uses for its flagship models, tested to perform in magnetic fields up to 15,000 Gauss. The snowflake hands and square indices give it a visual identity that does not look like any other diver currently in production. At $3,000, the Tudor Pelagos 39 offers more independent technical certification than the Rolex Submariner at $12,000. That sentence gets argued about on forums, but nobody argues it is incorrect. If Cartier, Longines, IWC, and Shin are on this list for fixing their problems, Tudor's Pelagos 39 earns an honorable mention for having almost none, and for the ones it had, fixing them quickly. Now, let's talk about Snowflake. The Snowflake runs on the spring drive 9R65 movement, has essentially no equivalent controversy. The spring drive is a hybrid movement that stores energy mechanically, like a mainspring, and regulates it electronically via a magnetic brake. The seconds hand glides. It does not tick. It does not sweep in the way of a normal automatic. It moves in one continuous fluid motion. The accuracy is within 1 second per day. Community complaints about the spring drive movement after 15 years of production are almost none. One Fratello reviewer called it the movement that answers a question nobody could agree how to ask. The Snowflake dial takes the same philosophy as the white birch, a surface worked by hand to resemble a natural phenomenon, and applies it to snow, specifically to the surface of fresh snow in Shizuoka in winter. A white dial that is not white. It catches light at different angles differently. A watch photographed in an unlit room looks gray. In winter morning light, it is almost luminescent. No other dial has been compared to it favorably in 15 years. The community's verdict: if someone tells you the Snowflake has a flaw, ask them to name it. They usually can't. And when they try, what comes out is something like, "It's hard to find," or "I wish the size options were different." Those are not complaints about the watch. Those are complaints about logistics. The watch itself has been on wrists since 2010, and the conversation around it has never soured. That is a longer track record of community silence than almost anything on this list. And now, for the only watch on this list that is not a matter of opinion, it is a matter of physics. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 1. Citizen, the Citizen. Caliber 0100. Let me explain what this watch actually does, because the number alone does not capture it. A standard quartz movement, the kind in a $50 Casio, and the kind in most fashion watches regardless of price, runs on a quartz crystal oscillating at 32,768 vibrations per second. Over a year, accumulated timing errors add up. A good standard quartz is accurate to within 15 seconds per month. A very good one hits 5 seconds per month. The Citizen Caliber 0100 runs its quartz crystal at 8,388,608 vibrations per second. The crystal is an at-cut oscillator, specially selected from a production run, where each crystal is tested at twice the normal number of steps, with a 10 times improvement in testing precision. The movement contains its own integrated circuit. This monitors ambient temperature every minute and corrects the oscillator frequency in response, because temperature changes affect quartz frequency in known, predictable ways. The circuit makes the correction before the drift accumulates. The movement also has a shock counteraction function that locks the hands in the event of an impact, and a monitoring system that regularly checks hand position and corrects any misalignment. The watch monitors its own accuracy and repairs it continuously. The result is accuracy to within 1 second per year, autonomously, without an atomic clock signal, without GPS synchronization, without any external reference. The watch maintains this on your wrist, in the real world, through temperature fluctuations and movement and everything a worn object experiences. To put this in perspective, Rolex's superlative chronometer guarantees accuracy to within 2 seconds per day. That is 730 seconds per year. Grand Seiko's 9F quartz, one of the finest quartz movements in the world, from the most respected finishing house in Japan, is rated to 10 seconds per year. The Longines Conquest V, HP, achieves 5 seconds per year with GPS-assisted timing updates. The Citizen Caliber 0100 achieves 1 second per year with nothing but its own oscillator and a temperature-correcting integrated circuit. The mechanical watch that matches this does not exist. No purely mechanical movement at any price has achieved 1 second per year accuracy without external signal assistance. Citizen achieved this in 2019 inches, a solar-powered wristwatch retailing for less than $10,000. Forum complaints. Some early owners reported individual units running worse than specification. One documented case of 12 seconds per month, which would put it at roughly the accuracy level of a Grand Seiko 9F. These are real. They are also the exception. Long-term owners report that the Caliber 0100, properly light-charged, delivers what it claims. The availability situation is what the brief doesn't mention. The flagship Citizen store in Manhattan, as of late 2025, reportedly did not have one. The brand has not announced new production since the initial run sold out. If you find one, buy it. This watch may not be in production for much longer, and a watch accurate to 1 second per year is the kind of object that appreciates when it becomes rare. The design is minimal to the point of being almost conceptual. Titanium case, clean dial, Dauphine hands. The sapphire caseback exposes the movement, ruthenium-plated plates, and the copper coils of the motor. Citizen opened the caseback because this is engineering worth looking at, and almost no one in the watch world does that with an electronic movement. What do people complain about? The design does not compete with a Grand Seiko or a Rolex for visual impact. For the price, $4,000 to $8,000, depending on configuration, some buyers want more spectacle. These are complaints about what the watch is not. What it is, the most accurate wristwatch ever made. Not by a small margin, by an order of magnitude compared to COSC. By a factor of 10 compared to the Rolex standard that everyone else measures against. 1 second per year. 8 watches. A decade of research compressed into one list. The Shin that fixed its only real flaw after years of community feedback. The Longines that delivers true GMT under $4,000 while similar priced competitors give you the pseudo version. The IWC that addressed every weakness of its predecessor systematically and charged fairly for the result. The Cartier that solved the strap problem before the strap problem even had a name. The Grand Seiko dials. The white birch with a movement controversy that resolved and a dial that never needed resolving. And the snowflake, with 15 years of near-universal praise and nothing credible to argue against. The Rolex that ends the search. The Citizen that is accurate to a standard no mechanical watch has ever reached. None of these are perfect objects. The Sin's quick adjust clasp costs extra if you already own the watch. The White Birch 9SA5 took 2 or 3 years to settle fully into its specification. The Tudor Pelagos 39, which nearly made this list, had documented QC variants on early units before Tudor addressed it. The Citizen Caliber 0100 may no longer be in production and is genuinely hard to find. The standard for this list was not perfection. The standard was, sit in the forum threads, the Reddit comment sections, the watch you seek deep dives, the long-term ownership reviews from people who have worn these watches for years and try to find a complaint that holds up. For every watch on this list, after real research, the complaints collapse. The ones that existed were fixed. The ones that remain are preferences, not defects. The community that is hardest to please in the watch world, the obsessive, detail-oriented forum dwellers who will notice a date wheel off by a 1/4 millimeter, has run out of things to object to. That is the list. Most watch lists are about what to want. This one is about what holds up. After the excitement wears off and the photography fades, and you have worn the watch through seasons and service, and the honest opinion of the person sitting across from you at dinner, what are you left with? For 8 watches, the answer from the community is nothing to complain about, everything to say yes to. Wear something good. Drop it below. Which one of these is already on your wrist? Or on your short list? And if you think I missed one, name it. Hit that like button and subscribe.